Welcome to Defense Briefing. The content of the briefing includes Israel-Gaza war live updates, Blinken in Middle East as US seeks to avert war between Israel and Hezbollah. She's 16. The war in Ukraine wrecked her city and her childhood. Biden not told for days defense chief in hospital. Likely to agitate China, European powers step up their Indo-Pacific presence. Trump says civil war could have been negotiated. Historians disagree. Israel-Gaza war live updates, Blinken in Middle East as US seeks to avert war between Israel and Hezbollah. Washington Post. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is currently visiting the Middle East in an effort to prevent further escalation in the region. One of the main objectives of the visit is to prevent a wider war between Israel and Hezbollah. The United Nations Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has reported that nearly 90% of Gaza's population has been forcibly displaced in the past 3 months of war. UNRWA has also warned that a famine is looming in the region. She's 16. The war in Ukraine wrecked her city and her childhood. Washington Post. Kate Kobets, a 16-year-old girl from Izium, Ukraine, has been living through a brutal conflict for the past 3 years, unsure of what it means for her future. Her stepfather is a Russian prisoner of war, and she and her mother were confined to a bomb shelter for much of the year when she turned 14. Kate feels frozen and struggles to make sense of it all. Her home city was occupied by Russian forces for 6 months, resulting in the destruction of 80% of Izium and the death of over 1,000 of its residents. Kate's classes are still online, her friends are displaced, and her crush is in a different country. She walks for miles to escape into her own world, but no matter how far she walks, she can't escape reality. Despite the difficulties she faces, Kate longs for an uncertain future where she can attend college, become a photographer or barista, and take her mother on a trip to the Maldives. Kate's life has been turned upside down by the ongoing conflict in Ukraine. She walks for miles, hoping to escape the horrors of war and find some peace of mind. The destruction of her city and the loss of her friends have left her feeling frozen and unable to make sense of the situation. Despite the difficulties she faces, she remains hopeful for the future and dreams of a better life for herself and her mother. However, the future remains uncertain, and Kate's dreams may never become a reality if the war continues. Biden not told for days defense chief in hospital. BBC. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin was admitted to hospital on Monday due to complications following surgery, but the Biden administration was not informed until at least Thursday morning, according to a senior official. Austin, 70, has accepted responsibility for the lack of communication and stated that he could have done a better job ensuring the public was appropriately informed. It is not clear how many of his responsibilities Austin has been able to carry out due to his illness, nor the extent to which Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks stepped in to help. Republicans have expressed serious concern over the situation, with Senator Tom Cotton stating that there must be consequences for this shocking breakdown. The Pentagon Press Association has also criticized the lack of transparency. Likely to agitate China, European powers step up their Indo-Pacific presence. South China Morning Post. European powers are increasingly extending their reach into the Indo-Pacific region through defense arrangements and naval port calls. The presence of European countries such as Germany and Italy in the South China Sea is largely motivated by concerns over China's behavior and requests for involvement from regional players including the US, Japan and Australia. However, the presence of European powers is unlikely to make the region safer due to economic, resource and distance limitations. Some experts suggest that European powers should focus on increasing the capabilities of regional navies and coast guards rather than sending warships. The presence of European powers in the Indo-Pacific could help deter China's aggressive moves in the South China Sea, but could also agitate China if it sees them as external players. The presence of European powers indicates that Europe has finally acknowledged the importance of the Indo-Pacific, and these powers seek to uphold international law where it is being challenged. Whether the presence of European powers ensures a safer region depends on whether regional countries trust them to offer credible alternatives to the tense relations between the US and China. Trump says civil war could have been negotiated. Historians disagree. Washington Post. Donald Trump has been criticized by historians after suggesting that the U.S. Civil War could have been negotiated at a campaign event in Newton, Iowa. Trump went on to describe the war as vicious and suggested that Abraham Lincoln, of course, if he negotiated it, you probably wouldn't even know who Abraham Lincoln was. The American Historical Association said that his suggestion that a negotiation or compromise could have been reached to halt the war was inaccurate and disputed. Ho Wing-to, one of the last surviving Flying Tiger World War II pilots, dies at 103. South China Morning Post. Captain Ho Wing-to, one of the last surviving members of the Flying Tigers, a group of World War II pilots, has died at the age of 103. Ho, known as Winky, was a bomber pilot in the China-America Composite Wing, a subsidiary of the Flying Tigers. He flew missions over occupied China during the war and later became a pilot for Malayan Airways and Singapore Airlines. In 2019, Ho published his autobiography, Memoirs of a Flying Tiger, the story of a World War II veteran and SIA pioneer pilot. Churchill's favorite spy, aristocrat who risked her life in WW2. BBC. Christine Granville, Britain's longest-serving World War II spy, risked her life countless times on missions across Europe. Born in 1908 as Maria Christina Janina Skarbek, she was the daughter of a Polish count and an heir to a Jewish banking family. After her homeland was invaded by Nazi Germany in 1939, she and her second husband traveled to Britain to join the war effort. Granville submitted a plan to ski across the Carpathian Mountains into Nazi-occupied Poland, which was approved by MI6, making her the agency's first female recruit. She became known for her quick thinking, linguistic skills, and ability to navigate dangerous situations. Granville risked her life on multiple occasions, evading capture and carrying out successful missions. However, after the war, she faced discrimination in Britain and struggled to gain recognition for her achievements. Granville was tragically murdered by a former lover in 1952 in a London hotel. Her story has largely been forgotten, but historian Claire Muley has been working to have her achievements more widely recognized. She successfully organized for a blue plaque to be placed on the hotel where Granville was killed and played a role in creating a suite in her honor at a luxury hotel in London. U.S. Defense Chief promises transparency amid secrecy around hospital stay. Al Jazeera. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin has taken full responsibility for the secrecy surrounding his recent hospitalization. Austin, who is 70, was admitted to hospital on January 1 for complications following an elective medical procedure. The secrecy surrounding his hospital admission is a breach of standard protocol and comes amid heightened tensions in the Middle East. Austin apologized for not ensuring the public was appropriately informed and committed to doing better in the future. The Pentagon has said that Austin has resumed full duties from his hospital bed and will be returning to the Pentagon soon. Biden left in dark on Defense Secretary's hospital stay for days. Japan Times. U.S. President Joe Biden was reportedly not informed of Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's hospitalization until several days after it occurred. Austin was admitted to Walter Reed Medical Center on January 1, but the news was not made public until January 5. This lack of communication has raised concerns among senators, with Republican Senator Tom Cotton calling for consequences if the reports are true. The Defense Department has not provided details on Austin's ailment or the treatment he received. Why Taiwan arms sales, in place for decades, still spark U.S.-China tensions. South China Morning Post. The U.S. has approved a $300 million tactical systems upgrade for Taiwan, drawing criticism from Beijing. The move comes a month after a summit between U.S. President Joe Biden and Chinese President Xi Jinping, during which she urged the U.S. to stop selling arms to Taiwan. The U.S. does not recognize Taiwan as an independent country but is bound under its Taiwan Relations Act to provide arms of a defensive character to help the island protect itself. While the latest sale is seen as less provocative than previous deals, it is still expected to be viewed by Beijing as a challenge to its national reunification efforts. The U.S. has long been a major supporter and weapons supplier to Taiwan, and its arms sales to the island have increased since the Trump presidency. The latest sale is the 12th weapons sale to Taiwan in the 3 years since the Biden administration took office. The U.S. aims to deter China from taking military action against Taiwan and assure Beijing that the arms sales do not contradict its One China policy. However, Beijing sees the sales as an attempt to obstruct reunification efforts and views them as undermining strategic trust between the U.S. and China. The sale of arms to Taiwan has been a contentious issue between the U.S. and China for many years, but it has become more significant in recent years as China's military modernization drive has raised concerns about Taiwan's ability to defend itself. The U.S. has supported Taiwan's military aims to develop an asymmetric warfare capacity to exploit the vulnerabilities of a stronger adversary. The continued U.S. arms sales to Taiwan are likely to further strain U.S.-China relations and complicate efforts to rebuild ties between the two countries. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Dr. Six, your resident observer from the 6 Degrees world, here to bring you the latest news updates. Today, we covered a range of stories from around the globe, including the ongoing conflict in Israel and Gaza, the struggles of a young girl in war-torn Ukraine, the hospitalization of U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, European powers increasing their presence in the Indo-Pacific region, Donald Trump's controversial comments about the U.S. Civil War, the passing of a World War II pilot, the incredible story of a British spy, and the tensions surrounding U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. Let's start with the Middle East. Secretary of State Antony Blinken is currently on a visit to the region, aiming to prevent further escalation between Israel and Hezbollah. The situation in Gaza is dire, with nearly 90% of the population being forcibly displaced and the threat of famine looming. It's a complex and volatile situation, but Blinken's visit shows the commitment of the U.S. to finding a peaceful resolution. In Ukraine, we learned about the heartbreaking story of Kate Kobets, a 16-year-old girl living through the brutal conflict that has devastated her city. Despite the challenges she faces, Kate remains hopeful for the future, dreaming of attending college and becoming a photographer or barista. Her story reminds us of the resilience of the human spirit in the face of unimaginable adversity. Moving on to U.S. politics, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin's recent hospitalization has raised concerns about transparency within the Biden administration. The lack of communication regarding his condition is troubling, and there must be consequences for this breakdown. Austin has taken responsibility for the situation, but it remains to be seen how it will affect his ability to carry out his duties. In the Indo-Pacific region, we see European powers, such as Germany and Italy, increasing their presence. While their involvement may deter China's aggressive moves in the South China Sea, it could also agitate China if it sees them as external players. The presence of European powers highlights the importance of the Indo-Pacific and their commitment to upholding international law. On a lighter note, we pay tribute to Captain Ho Wing-to, one of the last surviving members of the Flying Tigers. His courage and service during World War II will not be forgotten. We also remember the incredible story of Christine Granville, Britain's longest-serving World War II spy. Her bravery and determination in the face of danger are an inspiration. Lastly, we discuss the tensions surrounding U.S. arms sales to Taiwan. While the U.S. sees it as a way to deter China and support Taiwan's defense, Beijing views it as a challenge to its national reunification efforts. This issue has long been a point of contention between the two countries and will continue to strain their relationship. In conclusion, today's news highlights the complex and interconnected nature of our world. From the Middle East to Eastern Europe, from the halls of power to the battlefields of war, these stories remind us of the challenges we face and the importance of finding peaceful resolutions. Remember, your thoughts and opinions matter. What are your thoughts on these stories? Thank you for tuning in. The content above showcases the latest briefing reports and analytical synopses, thoughtfully curated by the 6Do team. These insights stem from a wide array of reputable media outlets, think tanks, government sources, and specialized experts worldwide. We encourage you to explore these sources for a comprehensive perspective. Keep in mind that while the content may not always align with the official standpoint of 6Do Brief, it's not meant to be taken as absolute directives for decision-making. Comprising seasoned media professionals, learned scholars, and accomplished scientists, the 6Do team embodies a trailblazing, fully independent media entity. To customize 6Do Brief to meet your professional needs, you have the option to subscribe to a diverse array of briefings on our website, 6dobrief.com. Regardless of your location, you can conveniently receive 6Do Brief via email.